They call us poor, but they never show our wealth. They call us violent, but they never show your wars. You take our image, twist our truth, and sell it as reality. Well, today, I tell you this. We are not what you record. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but what if the picture is a lie? What if that picture is taken to tell only the story they want you to believe? For too long, the cameras have come to our land, and each time they arrive with a script already written. They don't come to discover the truth, they come to confirm their lies. They point their lenses at poverty, and then they turn away from progress. They search for misery, and when they find joy, they leave it on the cutting room floor. They make us look like we are stuck in time, as if we do not think, as if we do not dream, as if we do not fight for a better tomorrow. I know this because I grew up in that story they created for us. I remember being a child, seeing men with cameras in my village. They filmed the cracks in the walls of our school but never showed the strength inside that school. The children sitting on broken benches, learning under the hot sun because they believed education was their weapon against poverty. They filmed our worn-out clothes, but they never filmed the dignity with which we wore them, or the mothers who would sacrifice their last meal just so their children could eat. They never showed that part. And when I asked why they only took pictures of what was broken, one of them smiled and said, "This is what the world needs to see." I was too young to understand then, but today, I know what that meant. The world needs to see us weak so that they can justify their power. I know what it means to grow up with nothing. I know what it means to walk to school for hours with torn sandals, just to sit in a classroom with no books, because that was the only way to escape the life that had been written for me. I know what it means to study at night by the light of a candle, because electricity was a luxury. I know what it means to go hungry so that your brothers and sisters can eat. And yet, even in those days, I never saw myself as poor. We were rich, not in money, but in resilience, in culture, in hope. But that's not the Africa you see on your screens, is it? They never show you the boy who walks 10 miles just to read a book, the mother who sells vegetables so her daughter can become a doctor, the communities that come together to build a school with their own hands. No, they show you despair, because hope does not sell headlines. I remember the first time I saw one of those stories about my country on television. I was far from home, and for a moment I thought they were showing another place, because what I saw was not the place I knew. They spoke of famine, but not of the farmers who fed the entire region. They spoke of conflict, but not of the peace we worked so hard to protect. They showed a mother crying, but they never showed the thousands of mothers who wake up every day to build a better life. And that is when I realized the world does not hate us because we are weak. The world fears us because we are strong. And the only way to keep us down is to make us believe the story they tell about us. So they turn on the cameras and they show the world a broken Africa, a helpless Africa, an Africa waiting for a savior. They never say that the savior they speak of is the very hand that pushed us into the river. They never say that the aid they give with one hand is taken back 10 times over with the other. They never say that the instability they report on was planted like a seed by the same people holding the microphone. And when we rise and speak the truth, they call us radicals. When we demand dignity, they call us rebels. When we take control of our future, they call us a threat. But a threat to whom? To justice, to freedom, or to the lie they have been telling for centuries. I have walked this path. I have faced the doubt of those who said, "You will fail because the world will never allow an African nation to stand on its own." I have seen the pressure, the threats, the isolation that come when you refuse to bow your head. I have seen the power of propaganda when they cannot defeat you on the battlefield, so they try to defeat you in the minds of your own people. I have seen my name twisted, my words cut into pieces to fit their narrative. And every time I ask myself, why? Why do they fear the truth so much? And the answer is simple, because the truth is power, and they know that if Africa speaks its truth, the world will never be the same. So to those holding the cameras, let me say this. You can point your lens wherever you like, but you will never capture the soul of a people you do not understand. You can show the world what you want, but you will never silence the truth that beats in the heart of this continent. Because the story of Africa will not be written in your studios. It will be written here, by us, by those who live it, fight for it, and die for it, if we must. And to my brothers and sisters across this land, do not believe the lies they tell about you. You are not what they record. You are not what they write. You are more than their headlines. You are the story they cannot control. They tell you they bring truth, but truth is the first casualty when propaganda is the weapon. What they call a truthy is not truth. It is an illusion carefully crafted for their interests. They have mastered the art of showing you what they want you to see and hiding what they do not want you to know. The cameras are not neutral. The headlines are not innocent. Every word they write, every image they show, every silence they keep serves a purpose. And that purpose is not justice, it is not fairness, it is control. I learned this the hard way. When I was growing up, we had no big television at home, but sometimes, in the marketplace, we would see a screen showing news from the outside world. I remember one day I saw a report about my country. They spoke of hunger, of instability, of chaos. They spoke as if the entire land was collapsing into dust. I looked around me. Yes, we had problems. Yes, life was hard. But that day, the sun was shining, children were laughing, people were working the fields, and hope was alive. Yet in their story, none of that existed. It was as if they had erased our dignity and replaced it with despair. And I asked myself, how can they lie so boldly? Later in life, when I started speaking for my people, I saw the same thing happen again, but this time, it was me they twisted. I gave a speech calling for independence, for dignity, for our right to decide our own future without interference. And what did they write? They said I was dangerous. They said I was dividing the world. They said I was a radical who wanted chaos. Do you see how propaganda works? They take your truth and turn it into a threat. They make you the villain in your own story so they can justify their actions against you. And it is not only me. Every time an African leader stands up and says, and no more, they attack him with words first. They will call him corrupt. First, they will call him a dictator. They will say he is against freedom, but they never say why he stood up. They never say what he is fighting for. They never say that the system is built to keep him down. They erase the reasons and only show the reaction. That is propaganda. It is not about telling lies all the time. It is about telling half the truth and hiding the other half. When I was young, I did not understand this. I believed what I saw on their channels. I believed that we were weak, that we could not survive without their help. That is what they wanted me to believe. And when you believe that lie, you live like a slave, even when your chains are invisible. It took years of struggle, years of walking the hard road, years of seeing my people suffer while others grew rich from our land. It took all of that for me to open my eyes. I have seen things they will never show you. I have seen their so-called aid arrive in big containers, not as help, but as a debt that will take generations to repay. I have seen their companies take gold, uranium, and oil from our soil and then tell the world we are poor. I have seen soldiers come in the name of peace, but leave us in pieces. And when all this happens, where is their media? Where are their cameras? Silent, blind, deaf, because the truth does not fit their script. But when a child dies of hunger, they are the first to take the picture. When a conflict erupts, they are the first to shout the headline. They never show what caused the hunger. They never show who armed the rebels. They never show who benefits from the chaos. This is how they win the war without firing a bullet. Through propaganda. They shape the mind before they shape the battlefield. They make the world believe we are broken, so that when they break us more, nobody asks questions. I remember one time, I was invited to speak at an international forum. I thought, maybe now they will let me speak the truth. But before I spoke, they sent me a paper with a recommended talking points. This talking point. They wanted me to say we need more aid. They wanted me to say we need more foreign presence. They wanted me to stand there and tell the world that we cannot survive without them. I tore that paper into pieces. I spoke my truth. And do you know what they did? They cut the cameras. They turned off the microphones because the truth has no place in a system built on lies. That is why I stand here today, not just as a leader, but as someone who has lived the humiliation, someone who has walked in the shadow of propaganda and come out into the light of truth. And I tell you now, the time for lies is over. The time for their story is over. This is the time for our truth. This is the time to tell the world who we are, not who they say we are. When they tell lies about you long enough, those lies begin to sound like truth. Muddin. When the same headlines repeat the same story over and over again, the world begins to believe it. And what is worse, sometimes even you begin to believe it. That is the power of false narratives. They are not just words on a page. They shape perceptions. They shape policy. They shape how the world treats you. They shape how you see yourself. I have seen the damage these narratives do to my people. I have seen young men and women grow up thinking that the only way to succeed is to leave their homeland. You'd succeed in line. They think nothing good can ever come from here because the world told them so, every single day. When you open the news and all you see is poverty, conflict, corruption, disease, what does that do to the mind of a child? It plants a seed of doubt, and that seed grows into hopelessness. And hopelessness is the greatest weapon they use against us. When I was a boy, I used to hear people say, if you want to succeed, you must go to Europe or America. Why? Because that was the story drilled into us. They told us nothing good can grow here. They told us our land has no future. But let me tell you something. Our land is rich. Our minds are rich. Our culture is rich. I knew this deep down, but there were moments I almost believed the lie. There were nights when I thought maybe they are right. Maybe we are cursed. Because when you are a child walking barefoot in the dust, when you are sitting in a classroom with no books, when you are studying by candlelight because the lights have been gone for days, the lie feels like truth. I have lived through hunger. I have gone days with nothing but water because there was no food. I have seen my mother cry in silence because she could not feed all of us. And then I would hear on the radio some foreign voice saying Africa cannot manage itself. And I wondered, are they right? Are we truly incapable? That is what false narratives do. They attack your spirit before they attack your body. They make you question your worth, your ability, your very identity. But the truth is, we are not incapable. We are not broken. We are not what they show on television. I know this because I have seen the strength of my people. I have seen men who wake up before the sun and work until it sets just to make sure their children eat. I have seen mothers who sacrifice everything to send their daughters to school. I have seen young people who teach themselves technology from secondhand phones and broken laptops. Children laptops. That is the Africa they do not show you. That is the Africa they are afraid of. But the danger of these lies is not only what the world believes, it is what the world does because of it. When they paint us as weak, they justify their control. When they call us unstable, they justify their interference. When they say we are poor, they justify taking our resources up for our own good. And the whole world claps because the story makes it sound right. That is how narratives become chains. They are invisible, but they hold us tighter than iron ever could. When I started to rise and speak the truth, I felt the weight of those chains. Every time I spoke, they said I was dreaming. They said I was reckless. They said my people cannot govern themselves. And when I refused to accept their labels, they turned their media against me. They called me a dictator, a danger, a problem. They tried to make the world fear me because they fear what I represent. A free Africa, an Africa that owns its story. I know what it is like to be misrepresented. I know what it is like to wake up and see your name twisted, your intentions distorted. And the worst part, some of your own people start to doubt you because the lies are louder than the truth. But I did not give up because I have walked too far to turn back. I have suffered too much to let the same suffering continue for those who come after me. That is why I stand here and tell you, do not believe the lies they tell about you. You are not weak. You are not incapable. You are not the picture they paint. You are strong. You are resilient. You are resilient. You are the future they fear. And that is why they lie, because if you knew your true power, their time would be over. False narratives have stolen our pride, our confidence, and our dreams for too long. Today we take them back. We will no longer let others define who we are. We will no longer let their words shape our destiny. We will no longer let their lies become our truth. They tell us we are free. But what kind of freedom do you have when every decision you make is controlled by someone else? What kind of sovereignty is that? They said colonialism ended, but look around. Did it really? The flags changed, the faces changed, but the chains remain. Only now they are invisible, made of debt, dependency, and deceit. I understood this truth not in a classroom, but in life, through hardship, through sacrifice. When I was a young man, I believed the same promise they gave to all of us, that if we work hard, study hard, and follow their systems, we will rise. And so I did everything they told me to do. I went to school with torn clothes. I walked miles under the burning sun. I sat in crowded classrooms without books, and I told myself, if I endure this, the future will be better. But when I finished, what future was waiting for me? A future where my country was still on its knees, still begging for loans, still signing agreements that robbed us of what little we had. I began to see how deep this system goes. They do not need chains to control you when they can control your economy. They do not need soldiers when they have contracts. They do not need to conquer your land when they have your leaders in their pockets. That is the reality we live in. They decide the price of our gold, our cotton, our oil, resources that come from our soil, worked by our hands, yet we cannot decide their value. They lend us money at interest so high it can never be repaid, and then they call us poor. And when we cannot pay, they take more than money. They take control of our decisions, our policies, even our future. I have sat in rooms where foreign advisors told us how to run our own country. Imagine that a man who has never walked on our soil, who has never seen our people, who has never lived our struggles, telling us what is good for us. And if you refuse, they threaten to cut aid. They threaten to impose sanctions. They threaten to isolate you. This is not partnership. This is not cooperation. This is domination. Do you know what it feels like to lead a country where every budget must be approved somewhere else? Do you know what it feels like to say yes when every bone in your body wants to say no? Because you know the price your people will pay if you resist. I have felt that weight. I have carried that burden. And I have refused to surrender. Because sovereignty is not negotiable. Independence is not negotiable. Freedom is not negotiable. But make no mistake, the fight for sovereignty is not easy. They will not let go without resistance. When you stand up, they come for you. Not only with words, but with weapons, with economic pressure, with political sabotage. I have seen this with my own eyes. The day we decided to take control of our resources, they called us enemies of progress. The day we said we will no longer accept exploitation, they called us anti-democratic. The day we demanded respect, they called us rebels. They try to make the world fear us so the world will not hear us. And yet, through all of this, I have not forgotten why we fight. I remember the nights I went hungry so my younger brothers could eat. I remember the humiliation of seeing my mother beg for credit to buy food. I remember the promises of freedom written in books while I lived in a reality that was anything but free. Those memories burn inside me, and they remind me that we cannot give up, because if we give up now, then everything we have suffered will have been for nothing. Sovereignty is not a gift they will hand to us. It is something we must claim, something we must defend, something we must protect for the generations that come after us. And we will do it not by begging, by waiting, not by hoping they will change, but by standing up, by uniting, by refusing to let them write our destiny. They can take our wealth, they can take our lives, but they will never take our will to be free. Because a nation that does not fight for its sovereignty has already lost it.